So we're going to be using a Joe and a bag that has a little bit of weight in it. You want it to be a little flexible. So this has my leg weight and hand weights on both sides so that it can sit on the Joe a little bit without falling off, so you don't have to hold it on. And you want it to be heavy enough so that if you catch it, you feel it through your body a little bit. I also put a towel in here so that the structure was a little stronger. So it basically looks like towel and the weights. And yeah, that's the setup. Recording. So what we're working on today is a little bit taken from what Sandachi Sensei was doing, but it's heavily modified for what I want to work on right now. What we're going to do is we're going to start with the Joe and put our weighted bag on it. Gonna let it fall and then stop it as it falls, right? So you step away from it and feel what that feels like in your body. Do that a handful of times. This is really just going to be an exploration of how force impacts your body in different ways. No technique, no anything like that. So try and feel what muscles it hits. Feel how you actually stop it. Right. Basically figure out what your normal default is. Something's falling, what do you do? And of course, how does that affect you? Once you get bored with it falling directly into you, let it fall to the sides a little bit. And again, figure out how do you normally stop something that has a little bit of weight that's falling. All right, so we all now have a bit of a baseline for how we normally do it, right? And you feel what it feels like in your body, where it hits in your body, what muscles tense, things like that. What we're going to try now is, as it comes towards you, move to meet it, like move to stop it. So I'm going to let it fall towards me. So I'm starting further back. I'm going to move in on it to stop it. So it's probably the easier way to see it, right? It's fairly far back. And I move in to stop it. And see what that does. I mean, technically, in training, attacks are just weight or force in a direction, right? So what happens when we try all these different ways? And no single one's going to be the best way, right? It's just going to be a different way. And you'll use different ones at different times for different things. So right now for me, this bag is probably around 25 pounds. It's not that heavy, but even with the lightweight, so I don't hurt myself, I can feel where it hit. So for me, it's hitting a lot of the lats and lower back when I move in. My legs brace a little, but it doesn't really hit them that hard, probably because it's only 25 pounds. And I weigh more than that, considerably more than that. So my legs are used to that kind of weight. Even with that being the case, you can tell where in the legs it's affecting. So for me, it's the front of one of the legs and the calf of the other leg, depending on which leg is forward at the time. So the top of the front leg and the calf of the back leg and the lats. So this means if I wanted to be really good at moving in and stopping somebody like that, I probably would have to build those muscles. And now, instead of just catching it, well, instead of going into it, right, we're going to catch it. So there's going to be a little bit of blending with it. And how does that feel? Which means you try and match the speed a little bit. And it's more like you're catching a ball at a baseball game, right? As a catcher, there's a little recoil so that you don't get hurt. And see how that feels in your body. How is that different?
How's your Joe not sliding around?
It's on the ground.
Mine is sliding around too, just as much as anything.
I had to put my.
I just have to reposition it each time, but it's sliding all the time. Yeah.
So I'm on a foam mat, which has more friction probably than the floor that you have. I'm guessing.
I'm using Moana's dog bed. Because I have a wooden floor. It was really slipping around a lot.
Yeah, that would work. So for me, the difference with this is I feel it a little bit on the tricep biceps at the beginning. Then it hits the lats, less in the back, more on the side, and then it hits my legs. So the muscles it hits are a little different. And now it's the back leg that the top or front of the leg is firing more than the front leg. And it might be different for you. It's just to start to recognize what it feels like. And right now, my front leg has very little on it. The back leg, the calf fires, and the front of the, or top of the leg fires, which was different than when I was moving in. And it's different whether I bend the front leg to catch it or step back and bend the leg to catch it. Basically, it's the leg that's bent that gets all the weight. So the next one is to let it fall past you a little bit and catch it. So your body's not behind the catch, right? What that feels like. one of the with this, there's more on the arm, a little bit less on the lats. Both of my legs engage instead of just one. And these are my habits. Everybody's going to have their own habits with this. And this really is just learning how your own body handles it. The impact, like the muscle usage in the arms, isn't an impact. It engages slowly. And as it goes a little further down, my core engages, give my arm a little bit more strength. I'm guessing this is, of the ways we've done so far, this is the way I'm probably most used to doing, I'm guessing. All right, so the next one we're going to move to is we're going to let it fall, but instead of catching it, we're going to just try and slow it to the ground, right? So it starts falling, and let it go to the ground. Softly, gently. So this one you have to blend or match the speed even more, and then slowly add just a little bit of force to stop it. And for me, this one, though the arms fire a little bit, they don't fire anywhere near as much. But the rest of my body fires to lower myself to the ground. Largely in the ab, in midsection. How are people doing with that?
Pretty good. It's very different. Like you said, yeah, very different muscles for each one of these.
All right, so we're going to try one more, and then we'll start figuring out what some of this means. So for the next one, you're going to let it fall into you. Actually, we'll do two more. One, just let it fall into you and feel what that feels like. Try not to move too much, right? I collapse a little bit to take it, but not much. And this will tell you whether or not your habit when taking something is to meet it or to accept it a little bit. And they're different, right? You can do that. You can do that. And for me, the shock definitely is where it gets hit, but it also goes down a little bit into my feet, basically, legs and feet. If I go to meet it, the shock's a little different. Like my legs push off the ground, but I don't actually feel the force of this impacting going to the ground. Because slightly different shape. So try both, but know what your default is. And you can try it from a little further out, so it has a little bit more speed when it hits, a little bit more force, and it hits a different spot slightly. You can try it to the side, same deal. It falls, it falls. Cool. So the next thing we're going to try is once it actually hits, just get out of the way and see what that feels like. And it's going to hit the ground. It's going to fall a lot. And see how much of a weight is there from when you get hit to when you actually move. And if you feel you're cheating by looking at it, just close your eyes. If you do this kind of practice a lot, I would recommend goggles that blind you instead of closing your eyes, so you don't get in the habit of closing your eyes. That way you can keep your eyes open while wearing the goggles. Just so you don't have to break that habit.
Sorry, it's loud.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I mean, this one, there really shouldn't be that much impact on your body if you're willing to let your body go when it gets hit. If you're not willing to let your body go, then you'll feel the initial impact and then you move, right? Otherwise, there should just be a light grazing. Cool. How are people doing with that?
I lost my pack.
Did it break or is it okay?
It's okay. I just have to put it back together.
Okay.
Whoa. Mine's getting unruly.
Oh,
So I'm guessing while you're doing this, because you guys have practiced a lot, you have an idea as to where all of this stuff can actually be applied, right? The different ways of handling conflict that's coming in. So if we go back to the first one, was it the first? No, the second one, where we actually move in. So it's falling towards us and we move in. To a degree, this is a lot of emote stuff, right? So They come in to hit you and you move in. Now, other places move out and in, but you can move straight in also. So the question becomes, how do you take this fall that you're moving into, right? And the impact in your body and find a way to do that same motion with less impact? Which, for me, for this one in particular, if this part of my body turns in and moves under, and my arms just act more like a buffer, like there's a better word for it, but like shock absorber, right? Then there's much less impact on me than if I just let it fall and move in. So that's one way to try. And you can probably think of other ways to try too. Let's see, another way, it's falling in. If I try and go over, I get hit more. So good thing to know. I can try and move in off to the side a little bit. So this arm is the only thing that takes the impact. And it doesn't take much, and I can just let it go if I have to. Like, there are lots of different ways to try it. Try and figure out how to reduce the shock while moving in. The hope is that this means that you can actually apply a lot more power when you need to apply a lot more power or want to. Once we practice with people again, we'll be able to see if that's actually true. So it ended up kind of a mix of some of them because my arms are receiving while my lower body's moving in until I can slow down the part that's arriving enough that I can apply force without any serious impact to my body. Or that's what it feels like. Whether or not that's what's happening. Has anybody else tried something different that works for them?
I was kind of going off to the side, but moving in, like you said
Yeah.
before, and I was finding how it was turning my body a bit.
Yep. You might be able to do it without actually turning your body.
Yeah,
It's going to hit the shoulder a bit,
yeah,
but
yeah,
the hope is that it's not so much force there at that point that you're destroyed. And if it ends up being too much, you let it go, right?
yeah.
Because not everything always works. And if I go to the side, I think I need to move faster than the object in order to get there.
Yeah,
If I come up the middle, I can move slower in order to get there. It's coming to me. So I'm turning the midsection. Another way would be to turn the hips under, hips and legs, right? And then you'll have to find a way to do that where your upper body doesn't get away from you. But at the beginning, if it's really exaggerated, your upper body gets away from you. We all realize that would be a problem because then somebody can just apply a lot of force where you're not strong, but later you turn your hips, your legs come forward, and your upper body stays in a fairly strong position. So the next one is playing catcher, right? You throw it to you and you absorb it a little bit. So do that a few times. Remember where the pressure is in your body. And even if it seems like it's in a good spot, like it's on my legs, I feel comfortable. Try and figure out a way to reduce the pressure in that area. So one thing I'm noticing when I let it fall, there you can see the knees, right? My tendency is to do that. And you'll notice the knees are bent in not such a great way. Puts a lot of pressure on the legs and the knees and all of that. If I fire the calves, doesn't bend them as much. If I let it so that I bend back a little instead of meeting it forward, it takes even more pressure off of my knees. In order to do that, the calves fire down into my heels a little bit. And my core strengthens so that I don't have to bend forward. So it tightens like together and down. There it's in my knees. So how do we fix it? And you can do that too, like go back to just catching it, feel where all the pressure is, and then adjust. And remember the adjustment so that next time you do that adjustment first so you don't have a problem, right? And then for things like Aikido, this would be, they come in and you try and absorb, right? Either the turn or just you decided to go back before going in. It's that kind of absorbing feeling. In real life, it's catch a baseball or something heavy that's falling. And how do you structure your body so that it doesn't get damaged when you do that? And notice, because I can tend to go back to the habits. When you do, fix them until you stop going back to your habits. And my hip is turning forward a little bit so that I don't bend my knees as much. There, I hit that knee a lot. So I need to relax it, which means this leg goes back a little and the hip turns forward a little bit more. Don't close your eyes when figuring this stuff out. That's just a bad habit I have. Don't do the bad things I do. Do your own bad things. And just like earlier on, start further away. So you have a slightly different problem, right? It's falling to a different area. You can try for it falling to the side. And that changes the problem, right? So now this fires, this knee has a bit of weight, this leg's really light. Try it again, see if that's my standard, kind of is. So I need to turn my hip a little bit towards it, which allows the lats to relax, and then the core can engage a little easier. And it doesn't affect my knees as much, doesn't impact me as much. Or at least it doesn't feel like it does.
So if it's hitting my lower back, are you dropping that?
Where in your lower back is it hitting?
Right, yeah,
High or low?
no, low,
Okay. So like just above the hip?
yeah,
So if it hits just above the hip, if you tuck your pelvis a little
Yeah.
bit, does that change it?
okay, we try. Yeah, takes it away.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you.
That should allow the back to be relaxed. The core still tightens a little bit, at least for me, to keep me upright. So if I don't let the core tighten, then I do that kind of a thing.
Yeah, that's
So
my
instead it
problem.
tightens and presses down. So this stays upright and I have power.
I
Please
think that
stop.
was my problem is I was relaxing the core and then it hit into my lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to the next one, but if I'm moving on too fast, let me know. So the next one is, it's dropping and you lower it to the ground. I think that was the next one we did. So it drops and you lower it. You can go all the way to the ground, you can go most of the way to the ground, that's up to you. But do that a few times and feel what it actually impacts. So what I'm feeling it impact most, at least for me, is my calves and the top of my legs, both the front and the back. Basically, because I'm lowering myself. The upper body doesn't really have much happening, but the legs do. So how does one reduce that? I can spread my legs more so I'm not going so much into a crouch, right? I was doing a crouch. I can leave one where it is. That takes a lot of pressure off of it. I can probably find a way so that I don't actually have to crouch down as much. Which means I need to somehow find a way to not bend forward, but bend back a little. I don't know if you guys are feeling the same muscles firing when this happens or not. If you are, you can find other ways. I could probably move in front of it or to the side of it, and then just turn my body. Probably bend, which then puts stress on the lower back. You kind of go one side instead of both sides, which allows your legs to move differently. And it's not going to be a perfect, it's just finding how to reduce the impact in different ways. I can actually let myself go into Seiza instead of crouching down. And that actually, for me, reduces a lot of pressure. Different people, that might not be the case. Because then instead of holding the force that comes in, it transitions as my legs go to the ground and my knees go to the ground. And it stretches my toes, but doesn't really put a lot of impact on them. Tends to be a slower force putting, like going onto it. And I mean, I'm sliding the whole time. I really need to find a better camera setup for when I do this kind of stuff. And how are people doing on this one?
Good.
Have you found ways to reduce the force? Well, reduce the impact, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Like you said, being bent over puts a lot of strain. So trying to drop
Mhm.
and not take it in my knees. So trying to fire my, what do you call them? Bigger muscles. God, can't think.
Your leg. Let's just call them legs.
Legs. Yes, fire my thighs. That's it.
Okay.
Instead of letting it hit the knees. Helps definitely. So it protects different parts when you're firing other parts. For sure.
And then you need to, like I said, none of them are perfect. You decide, well, hopefully your body decides when things are happening, what to use, depending on how much force is coming in. If it's very little force, I may let the impact go to spots that aren't so great,
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter. As long as the instant I realize it's more force, my body can correct
Yeah.
and find a different way to accomplish what it needs to accomplish.
Yeah, I think it's finding that, noticing that where it's like, oh shit, that's a bad spot. I need to adjust that. That's a really good awareness. With this weight too, it's perfect.
So the next is that it just falls into you, I think. Right? And that impacts you. And you can also do the one where you go out to it instead of it falling into you, kind of a thing. And both of them impact your body. So the question is, how do you get it to impact less? So right now, the impact is largely where it hits. And it doesn't really go, it goes down a little bit, but it doesn't really hurt my legs because my legs are fairly upright. So for me, it would be, how do I get the upper body to reduce the impact? And for me, that's actually just adding a little bit more give to it. And give is a little different than just collapse. Right there's give, but you'll notice things go forward.
Okay,
This part goes back while other things go forward. So I don't just give up ground
okay,
versus collapse where everything goes back. And this is one way to take strikes also, where you let part of your body take the strike while the rest of your body is ready to fight. But again, you don't collapse, because if you collapse, then they just keep coming and you've lost pretty much most of the time. And of course, it's not an absolute. There will probably be times that you want to collapse. And you don't. So that's when you actually receive it. When you go out to meet it, right? You increase the impact. So how do you make it so even that has less impact on you? For me, I move forward while the chest caves a little bit, instead of pushing the chest out. So I'm still moving towards it, but the chest moves in a tiny bit to take at least some of the force off of it. That's one way, and there are probably many other ways. So for Aikido, right? You can stand your ground and take a force towards you, which means your body compresses a little, but it's still moving forward. Or you can move into it aggressively while part of your body takes some of the shock out of it. So you're making ground, but the impact's not quite as bad. And these are all kind of in reference to Ikkyo, just because we've done it a lot. But you can look like you're very aggressive then, while having it not feel like you're super aggressive, because you're not just meeting their force with force. Or you can look like you're standing your ground when really part of you isn't, like all of this is caving in. So it doesn't hurt as much.
and when you do that,
Mhm.
you're absorbing it down through your body, right? Because you can't just absorb it in your chest,
Well,
right? Like somebody comes in with a really strong strike for Ikkyo.
yeah, so
It goes through your chest and out the back.
what? So
Goes
it come,
out the back.
kind of does, right? Because this curves outward,
Okay,
which stretches all of your body,
so it kind of comes down then.
kind of comes out.
Oh, out, okay.
You can make it go
Okay.
down, like you can take everything down, but then you have more impact in your body, or you can spread it outward. And there's this curve
Okay,
that the force kind of goes, basically it's like skirting something. Right, it comes in and you angle it just a little bit so you don't take the full force of it versus taking that and finding a way to press it into the ground.
Okay,
That's one way. Like you could just take everything to the ground. To me, I feel a lot of the impact then,
mm-hmm,
basically because all of the force comes in and I drop it to the ground. My legs take more force. Everything takes more force all the way to the bottom.
right,
Or I can let it go out a little bit so that I don't have to feel as much of it on me.
okay.
It's
Interesting.
different ways. And neither one's right. They're just different ways.
Would that be similar to what Ikeda Sensei was talking about, where you take your partner's power, combine it with yours?
I mean, so the moment there's force applied to you, it's combined with yours.
Okay,
And you can take it and around it and come back towards them. You can take it and around it and let it just go past you. It's what do you want to do with it once you actually are controlling what you're doing.
okay,
I don't know if that made sense, but
yeah. Yeah, okay.
it's probably a very political answer. That's what I got.
Okay,
It's like the name of my high school trivia team. It's what you do with it.
Perfect.
or not.
So in that example, this is falling towards me and I round it out. Right? So it turns and I'm applying force more by stretching my body out than by receiving it.
Yeah, okay,
But then it comes towards you. You can bounce it forward a little bit, but it's still like, it's kind of like flinging something. So you're meeting their force and then throwing it, like changing the direction a little bit and throwing it out. Um, If you've ever thrown medicine balls or basketballs, you can receive it and throw it back, or you can take it and just kind of let it go past.
Keep going all over.
So you don't actually have to take the full weight. At least not in the same way. I would have to go look up the actual physics to see if you're actually taking the full weight when something glances off with what, centrifugal force or some, is that what it ends up being? What? Centripetal or centrifugal?
Centripetal, football
Petal.
not exist.
Okay. So yeah, so I don't know if you throw something with a lot of weight at it, how much of that it takes at any one point in time. I don't know. I'd have to, like I said, I'd have to go open up a physics book.
that's okay, that's okay. Gary, you don't have to- I believe you, I believe you.
Not belief, gotta test it.
Well, I'll try it by next Sunday. What works best for me? Science or not?
So I think that was most or all of the things that we covered at the start. I don't know, are there questions or things people want to try with this?
I don't know about questions, but I found myself using, I guess, from about my hips down through my heels a lot.
Okay. Did you
Both
find a
in
way
res-
to reduce that?
I felt great.
So yeah, so one problem that, at least with some of the stuff that I worked or have worked on is like muscle exertion feels amazing. And that's kind of it's a bad input. Like you don't want to actually feel a lot of muscle exertion and be like, yay, that feels good, even though it does when you're trying to remove it. So like there, when I did that, my legs are engaging a lot. And it feels good. Like it feels strong. It feels good to fire muscles. But I want to actually reduce that as much as I can. So that when I need more power,
You've got
I
extra.
can then right
Yeah.
be in a place where I apply more and all that kind of stuff. So which ones were you feeling it in the legs the most?
The front quads and the back calf.
Okay, but which exercise?
Oh, letting it come back, excuse me, come back into me and letting it drop.
Okay, so it's going to be the one where like this, right? Where you
Yes.
So if you can do that and get to the point where you feel it in the legs. And then we'll try and make it so you don't feel it in the legs as much. So yeah, so if you could let it actually like give it a try. Because this one's going to be easier than the one where you go down to the ground. Right? So you let it fall towards you. You feel it in your legs, right?
Yeah, especially the calves.
Okay. So to take it out of the calves, if you turn your heels, so your heels aren't going to turn on the ground, but they're going to turn a little bit. Like it's not like your feet turn a lot. It's just this tiny bit. Have them turn out and towards you, right? Each one. Just a tiny bit. The friction of your feet on the ground stops your legs from turning.
Okay.
And just enough so that you can relax your calves. Because it'll put a little bit more on the front of your legs and remove a little bit from the calves. Just so
What
that
if
you relax.
What if I stretch through the front of the leg?
Then you're just putting the tension in the front of the leg completely, right?
Not completely, it's split.
I would, so how do I say this?
At least that's what I think I'm doing.
The feet. Kind of, you can see the feet. All right. So I've caught it. Well, my
Yeah.
legs are turned. If I really exaggerate, if I do that,
Oh,
but not that much, just enough so that
okay.
your feet don't turn, so that the friction stops your feet from turning, and you do it enough, then you should be able to relax your calves. Like manually get them to stop firing.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the first step. And you still have like the tops of your legs that we're going to work on next. And I think it's like you're able to do it because it adds a little bit of tension, which keeps the structure, but lets you relax the muscles a little bit. Cool. All right, so I have it here. I've done that a little bit. The calves have relaxed. There's still my upper leg. So if I want to be able to relax those, if I tuck the pelvis just a little bit,
Okay. Yeah, I was doing that.
yeah, can you do it? So does that relieve
Yeah.
the upper leg
Yes.
for you? All right,
Yes.
so now your calves are relaxed and your upper legs are relaxed.
Okay.
And it should be a little bit less work with the legs, right?
Yes.
There's a visualization that helps me, which is if you pull your spine and your head up after you've put the work into your legs, it'll distribute the load through your body a little more evenly.
I think they start that earlier.
But you don't want to so early that your lower back then tightens and blocks it. So then you're back to sort of square zero where you don't have it down in the first place before you sort of redistribute it. At least that's kind of my own process.
For me, it's not so much that it gets stretched up, but that from here, this goes up and that goes down a little. And that allows my lower back to release.
Yeah, I'm
Hips
not feeling much at all in my lower back.
Okay, that's good.
That was my,
So whatever I'm doing, it must be the right thing for that.
Yeah. But then it's also, how do you get into a structure? And I can't just pull upright for me. I need a little bit of the turn in the legs in order to be able to release the calves and the tops of my legs. So I need something to hold the legs bent still.
I put an emphasis on this part of my body. And that takes the stress off of my legs.
Okay, yeah, for me, it's not here, it is these two. Like, it does, this settles downward, this pulls upward. And then all the way up. But that doesn't relieve the pressure from my legs. It actually adds a little bit more pressure as this presses down. And then I turn the legs. So I have a little bit of structure to keep them bent. Then I can release the muscles.
Yeah.
And then if I tuck the hip, well, tuck the pelvis a little bit, the lower back can release. And it's
Yeah,
just-
what I think that's what I've found by tucking the pelvis, that has been taking a lot of stress off of different parts of my body as I stretch myself.
Yeah, I could see that. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns, complaints?
It's a great way to practice alignment, as you say, when taking force in different directions and all that. No, thank you very much. This was good.
Yeah.
Thanks.
it's cool.
Cool.
It was a good awareness of where I'm taking pressure in my body. Because I struggle with this. It tends to always go into my lower back and my hips.
Yeah, so it might be good at the time. I know it's hard to do when everything's in motion, but whatever spot you're in where it takes it, to stay there and figure out a solution. So that next time you can do that solution right before it occurs.
Right.
Mm.
I definitely need to do that.
Which,
One more.
which is hard when everybody's coming in
Yeah.
fast and hard. So
You're
everybody
just
kind of
trying
has
to
to be
get
on
it
the same page.
off of that spot. I know, but I'm not absorbing it right. I'm just taking it and trying to get rid of it instead of trying to change it.
Right.
And I need to learn to try and change it.
And for this, it's not just necessarily changing it, it's finding the parts that are. So by being hit, I mean, they end up tensing.
Yeah.
And then
Right.
finding a way to make it so that they don't tense.
Okay. Yeah.
At least without collapsing your structure and all of that, which, so it's not like they completely just give, right?
Yeah.
That would make life really easy, just everything, they come in and.
Yeah, no, tilting the pelvis or dropping the tailbone
Mhm.
helps to transfer that energy down too. And bypass, the back of my lower hip, my lower back, where it tends to always hit into,
Cool.
Yeah. And I think when I'm training a lot, I just build up enough muscle there that it doesn't bother me. But right now I notice it more because I don't have that muscle, to take it. So I have to actually learn how to change it.
And then we actually are training and have muscle there.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll be strong.
Yeah.
but you still won't end up taking as much force in that area.
I keep laughing at myself, wondering if this, what I've been learning over the past year, is it going to go away when I get on the mat with other people again?
Hopefully not.
I'm hoping not. I just worry about it.
There might be.
But I've got you and Kay to get me straight.
I forget
I wouldn't-
everything, so it's Gary.
You might have to.
You know,
do-
Kathy, I wouldn't worry about it going away. What I would worry about is the environment to practice these things will be very different when we get back on the mat with people. So I don't think it's going to go away, but the way that I can practice these things we've been doing the last 12 months will be very different once we get back on the mat together. So the
I'm
challenge is
hoping.
not going away. The challenge is how do I continue practicing this even in light of physical contact, which we haven't had for a year.
Yeah, right.
And you may have to practice it outside of class, right?
Exactly.
So take people to the side after class and slowly work on something till you get it refined enough that you can do it at speed.
Right.
In
You may
class.
not be able to do these things directly in class immediately once we get back together, but you can incorporate these, as Gary said, little by little,
Yeah.
you know, block by block, so to speak.
Right.
Just my thought.
All right, then I am gonna call the class so I can stop recording.
Yeah.